Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to my channel. Now today I've got another weekly forex analysis for you guys. So on the screen other pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I will be going into depth analysis about what's happened during this week's trading week and potentially what could be happening during next week's trading week. So make sure you stay to the end of the video for all of that. But with all that said, guys, let's just get straight into it. First up, we've got Euro USD. Okay, so first up, like usual, people, we've got Euro USD. So for this pair, we did see more downside this week. Overall, the market is still very bearish, and we did see that momentum come in this week as well. The market is a little bit choppy. You can see price action here is a little bit choppy compared to the price action we've had previously, but overall, we are still making lower lows and lower highs. Earlier in the week, we were forming support around this level here, around 1.17774 earlier in the week, and we thought we could see a push to the upside. We did see a brief one. However, because the market is still overall bearish, we did fall back again to the downside. So for next week, I do expect to see that price action carry on. As long as we can stay below this level here, this prior resistance here in the market, if I drop down to the 4H, you can see it a little bit better. As long as we stay below that level there, which is this previous lower high, I still see more downside for Euro USD. The pair is a little bit choppy, but it's still making those lower lows, lower highs, and I think it will just slowly trickle again to the downside. We do have this key level of support which we've been struggling to break through there, as you can see, all through this week, and I think for next week we'll probably see a break of that level and more downside. And again, as for targets from a daily point of view, if I just zoom out for a second, you can see we've got this low all the way down here, and that is where I do think price action is headed for this pair. So Euro USD more downside, so around the 1.17 level. We might push past that, but I'm not going to be overall aggressive with that bias there. So more downside for Euro USD as long as we stay below 1.18500. Will be nice to see if we can get a little bit of a pullback to start the week off, so we can maximize our risk to reward. A nice pullback will be great, and then again, as long as we stay below that 1.18500 area, we'll be looking for shorts back down into this low here as the first target, and if we can get a break through that, then we'll be looking down at 1.17. Next, we're going to take a look at USD JPY. Okay, so now we're going to move on to USD JPY. So for this pair, I was expecting to see more downside this week, which we did see quite early on. I believe we ended last week around here, and we did see that momentum coming to the downside, and I said price looks good for a test of this area down here around the 109.250 area. We did see a test of that, and from there the market just pushed the upside quite aggressively. So we're looking quite bullish now for USD/JPY, and especially on the weekly as well. From the weekly, we still do have bullish price action here. As you can see, we had this nice push, pullback, push, and this here looks to just be a pullback, and we just got a nice break and retest of this resistance here in the market. So prior resistance just across here, and now it's turned support, and as you can see, nice wick to the downside, and we pull back up and close bullish. A really nice bullish candle there. So I'm expecting to see next week be bullish as well and see that momentum take us to the upside. But first up, we're looking for a bit of retracement on the lower time frames to get in some nice entries, and then we can ride the momentum to the upside. So I do expect to see it move to the upside. Next week's target will be this area here, where we had that resistance there and a bit of a doji there around the 111 mark. So we'll be looking for buys this week for USD/JPY, as my bias is to the upside. I think as long as we can stay above this area here, this support, I'm firmly fixed for that bullish bias. If we do take this, take up this support, it might mean the market might fall to the downside a little bit further before it does move up. It might move all the way down to this area down there. As you can see, really nice area of support, which did give us the move to the upside, so I can see that happen. But I think as long as we stay above this support, looking for a bit of retracement to start the week off, because again, risk to reward, and we're approaching some resistance right now. Looking for a bit of retracement to start the week off. Be great if we can, retest that area, give a bit of a double bottom. But if we can pull back, form some nice support, and we'll be looking for buys back up to 111 for next week. And next we've got USD CAD. Okay, so next up we've got USD CAD. So for this pair, we did see more upside for USD CAD, which was expected. I was looking for a bit more retracement to start the week off. I believe we finished the week around here. We didn't really see much retracement, and then big move up, and we had a big move back down again. You can see that on the weekly. That price action is represented with a really nice wick to the upside there, as price is hanging onto this key level of resistance. So it was price support over here, was time resistance, big move to the downside, and now it is back at that same level, and it gave us a really nice bearish shooting star there. So I'm expecting to see some downside for USD CAD. I'm not expecting to see the market have a mad movement or a crazy move back down again, but to around this area here, around the 1.24500 area. I'm not sure if we'll break past that, but I'm expecting this range to be filled. But overall, the market for me for USD CAD is still very much bullish, so I'm not expecting to see a reversal after that wick on the weekly or this big push to the downside. I'm just expecting the market to retrace a little bit more, and we might see some upside later on in the week. So for USD CAD, quite early on, you can see the market is already starting to look quite bearish there, failing to break through this resistance here as well. Nice wick to the upside there towards the end of the week. So I'm expecting to see a move to the downside to start the week off. It would be great to see a little bit more of a retracement, maybe to get a nice risk to reward and a bit more retracement. But then I'm seeing another push to the downside to around that 1.24800, 1.24600 areas. So more downside for USD CAD, and I think from here we'll probably see some nice opportunities to buy again, because the market is still bullish, and I do still see some USD CAD strength to the upside. So from here there might be some nice buys back up again. But the main move that I'll be focusing on for next week is the move to the downside. Then we'll monitor price action around here, whether there is buying opportunities or not, because we well could actually break through that same area. So yeah, USD CAD, more downside for this pair, massive move to the downside, expecting a bit of retracement and a move back down to around the 1.24800 or 1.24600 area. Up next is Euro GBP. Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video. And now I'm going to move on to Euro GBP. So for this pair, as you can see, we had a massive move up and back down again for Euro GBP this week. I was actually expecting a move to the downside this week, as long as the market did stay below this trend line. However, as you can see, if I draw it in now, the market did break through that trend line. So I was expecting to see a move to the downside, but that was invalidated by that strong candle closure and break of that trend line. And I did say last week, if that was to happen, I do expect to see more upside back up to this area here. However, as you can see, it was just one big false breakout for Euro GBP, a big move to the upside, and as you can see, a big move back down again, back below that trend line. So I think as long as the market stays below that trend line, we've just got a really nice liquidity grab, a big false breakout, and now I do expect to see that bearish momentum really come through to the downside now. So we do have our targets down here for Euro GBP, which is this support. And if I just draw that across, you can see we do have a nice target there, just below that previous low there. So yeah, more downside for Euro GBP. We also do have this resistance here, which was price support. So as you can see, price support held that consolidation, which is now going to be resistance. So I think as long as the market does stay below that trend line, does stay below that resistance, I'm only looking for selling opportunities for Euro GBP and a move back down into these lows. So yeah, for next week, looking for some retracement to the upside first, because we had a really nice retest of that area last week, well this week. So I'm looking for next week to either have another retest that area or give me a nice lower high formation on the lower time frames like the hourly, and then we can short that back down, targeting this support here. And if you can break through that, back down to this daily support all the way down there. So yeah, more downside for Euro GBP as long as we stay below that trend line and below that resistance. Okay, so up next we've got AUD USD. Okay, so next up we've got AUD USD. So for this pair, we did see more downside this week, which was expected. The market was looking quite bearish from last week. Overall, still giving us lower lows, lower highs. Price action slightly choppy, but as you can see, we still did maintain our structure here. I did say as long as we stay below this level here, I'm expecting more downside. And as you can see, the market pretty much just opened to the downside and just fell there quite aggressively. So not much retracement to give us an opportunity to get involved, but we were still correct with our bias. And for this week as well, I'm still expecting more downside, at least back into this price support where we found a nice push to the upside kind of midweek, which is around the 0.73 area. Nice psychological number there as well. So I'm expecting another drive into that area, but it would be nice to see a bit more upside first for the USD back into this area here. Price support will now be turned resistance. So look in the 4H looking for another drive to the upside to give us a nice better risk reward, and then when we get that risk reward, we can take those shorts back down into that support, and again probably even lower lows at this point as well. But it's pretty much from the weekly, daily and 4 hour, we're still pretty much bearish on this pair, and I'm still expecting to see some strength in the USD as well, so that probably help the pair move lower. So yeah, more downside for AUD/USD for next week. Wanting to see a bit more retracement to the upside first, back to around the 0.74200 area, break and retest on the daily, then we can take that back down into 0.73.
Now let's take a look at NZD CAD.
Okay, so up next we've got NZD CAD. So for this pair, as you can see, we had a quite big move to the upside this week. However, it was short-lived and the market came straight back down. We did expect to see a move to the upside for this week. We were expecting that. As you can see, the market was making those higher highs, higher lows. So we were expecting to see another push to the upside. However, again, it was short-lived. And I did tell you guys that we do have a really key area of resistance here, 0.88500. This level here is effectively kind of our higher low in the market. Actually no, sorry, our lower high in the market, and effectively is the level that's keeping us bearish. So we do need to break through that for us to really have a reversal on our hands. We still could reverse and still break through that area next week or the week after, but for now we don't have that reversal as of yet. So for NZD CAD, we're kind of a tricky place here because we still do have this bullish structure here of higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, potentially another higher low, and we could be seeing another drive to the upside. So we still do have that bullish structure, but overall we could still actually technically see a move back into these lows. So for me to decide that bias, I want to see what happens at this trend line here in the market. So as you can see, keeping us in that uptrend here, test, second test, third test. Want to see what happens at that trend line for a fourth test, whether we break through it or whether we bounce. If we do bounce, then we'll be looking for those buying opportunities back into that resistance up there. But if we actually do break through that trend line, then I do think the market's coming back all the way down to these lows here, and maybe even some new lows as well. So NZD CAD, watch what happens at that trend line. If we do bounce, then in the midweek I will show you guys my bullish bias on my live stream, so make sure you go check that out, and we will be looking for buying opportunities to take this higher back into that resistance. But if we actually do break through that trend line, then on the retest on a form of a lower high, we'll take this back down into that support all the way down there.
Next up, we've got GBP NZD.
Okay, so next up we've got pound NZD. So for this pair, not much happened this week. Overall, the market is kind of just moving sideways. I do have that bearish bias still from last week. Last week I was expecting to see a drive to the downside, and as you can see, the market hasn't pushed past this support around the 1.96 area, which is what's keeping the market moving sideways. But I still do think we can break from 1.96 and see a move into around the 1.95 area, which is this support here. So I'm expecting a move to the downside this week, but of course we still do need to break through that 1.96 support. We do have this resistance up here, which is the resistance keeping us in the range. So we've got that resistance and that support keeping us in the range, and if I move to the lower time frames, probably see it a little bit clearer. So as you can see there in the 4H, we are rejecting that resistance there and rejecting that support as well. So one of these barriers need to break for us to really see some momentum in the market. If we do break through that resistance there, then I do see a push back up to this area here, around the 1.99500 mark, and just see the market fill that range to the upside. However, for now, I still do have that bias to the downside, because we are making these lower highs in the market. As you can see with this trend line, there's a high, lower high, lower high. So we are making these lower highs, and I do think if the market keeps up with that structure, we're likely to break to the downside and see the market fill that gap back down to around the 1.95 area. So for next week, a really good opportunity would either be a break and retest of that 1.96 support, or to see the market reject that 1.96, come back up, form another lower high at that trend line. Can be looking for selling opportunities there, and take it back down into 1.96 as the first target, and if we can get a break of that, back down to 1.95 as the second target. So that's what I'll be looking for next week for pound NZD. More selling opportunities back down into 1.96, and if we can get a break of that, back down to 1.95.
Next, we're going to move on to CAD JPY.
Okay, so let's take a look at CAD JPY. So for this pair, we started off quite bearish with a quite steep move to the downside, which was expected from last week. I did say we were looking for a move into this support from last week. As you can see, really key level of support, nice move to the upside, nice false break of that support as well, and quite a nice move to the upside as well. And this week we had another false break of that, nice close below, and the next candle straight close back above. So the market is respecting this 86 area, and the market is holding it as support. Overall, the market is still bearish for CAD JPY. As you can see, we're still having those lower lows and lower highs. I do expect to see another drive lower for this pair. We do have some price support, which is now going to be turned resistance in this area here. As you can see, nice support there, nice drive to the upside, and now will be turned resistance here. So from that area, from this kind of 88 area there, I'm expecting to see another drive to the downside back into this support around the 86 mark. So that is the move for CAD JPY I'm expecting to see. We might push slightly higher, but I think from this general area here, we will see some more downside for this pair. It is quite an aggressive move to the upside that we have for CAD JPY this week. So that's why I'm not expecting to see the market go and create some new lows this week and push past that area. I'm expecting to see the market come back and retest it and hold it as support. So for next week, CAD JPY shorts do look good from that 88 area. Nice area of prior daily support, now turn daily resistance, and if you can hold it, as you can see already on the 4H, we already lost that momentum that we've had to the upside. So again, as long as we lose that momentum, see a nice shift to the bears, back to the sellers, I do expect to see a nice sell-off to the downside, back down to around that 86 mark for next week.
Up next is GBP USD.
Okay, so next up we've got pound USD. So for this pair, we did see more downside for this pair for this week, which was expected. As I did say last week, the market was looking quite bearish, and I was expecting that momentum to come again into this week and take us to the downside, back down to around the 1.37 area. Now, as you can see, we smashed through that and actually ended up around the 1.36 before the market has sprung again to the upside. So the market overall is still very bearish. We didn't see much retracement, so there wasn't much opportunity to get into those shorts. But we did see that bias come through to the downside, and I still do hold that bias again into the following week, into next week. More downside for pound USD. As you can see, we do have this really key area of support, which gave us this nice double bottom before the market had this massive move to the upside all up to 1.42. Now, as you can see, nice close below, next candle close straight back above. So a bit of a false breakout going there for pound USD on that level. And we still do have bearish structure. The market's still making lower lows, lower highs. So at this moment in time, not much opportunity for us to change our bias back to the upside. So I'm still expecting to see another swing to the downside for pound USD. And also we do have this bearish trend line intact as well. Well, just if I connect these two recent lower highs there, if I go in the 4H, you see a little bit clearer. So if I just minimize the chart, you can see nice test there. Second test there, third test there, fourth test. So it'd be nice to see the market come up to around the 1.38 area, which is that resistance, maybe spike into that trend line. That would be great as well. Test that, and then we can see a push back down to 1.37 and maybe even back down to those lows as well. But for now, I'm expecting to see a move back down to 1.37. If the momentum is there and we do break through that support, then I think 1.37 could be a really nice target for next week as well. So more downside for pound USD this week. Expecting to see a little bit more retracement to come and hit that trend line. That would be great on the 4H time frame. And then if you do hit that, reject that area, form a nice lower high, then we can be looking for sales back down to 1.37. And if you can break through 1.37, back down to around the 1.36 area.
And next we're going to see what's happening with GBP CAD.
Okay, so up next we've got pound CAD. So for this pair, we did see a nice move to the downside this week, which was expected. We had a slight false break of our 1.74 barrier of resistance. So that was the resistance that I was focusing on pound CAD for this week. If I just draw that in now, we can see the market has respected this area multiple times. You can see there. And then we had resistance there as well, false break, and then we came across and we actually had a really nice false break of that resistance again recently. Massive wick to the upside, pulled all the way back down, and then we saw the follow through the following day. So the market for pound CAD is still looking quite bearish here from that resistance. I'm still seeing more downside for this pair. We do have some nice support here, prior resistance and support around the 1.2 1.71500 mark, which we have come to test, and I think we'll come to test again. And if we can break through that as well, then I do see a push back down to the 1.70500 mark. So the market for me, I'm only looking for sales as long as we stay below 1.74. So we can potentially see some retracement to the upside first, form another lower high, then come back down again. That's completely fine. Still we'll be looking for shorts after that. So yeah, shorts for pound CAD for next week. You can see in the 4H we're already forming some nice resistance here. So I think as long as we stay below this area, and if we do spike above but come back below, I will be looking for those shorts. There is a chance that we might retrace, come back to retest 1.74 of course, but then probably just monitor price action from there, because if we do break past 1.74, we might be turning bullish and seeing some higher highs coming to the market. And if that's the case, we'll be flipping my bias. But I think as long as we stay below 1.74, we'll be looking for those shorts to the downside. So either looking for another retest of this area here, 1.73, to take that back down into that area, then a break of that back down to 1.70500, or if we come back to 1.74, we'll look at price action there. Then if we can see some nice selling opportunities, a nice shift back to the bears, then yeah, we'll be looking for shorts again and taking it back down to that area there. So yeah, more shorts for pound CAD for this week, looking at around the 1.71500 area as the first target, then around the 1.70500 as the second target.
Okay, up next we've got GBP JPY.
Okay, so up next we've got pound JPY. So for this pair, we did see some more downside for this pair, which happened on Monday pretty much. Tuesday, a bit of indecision. Then we saw a nice relief to the upside as the market looked to retrace itself. So the market right now is looking a little bit bullish on the lower time frames of the hourly, maybe 4 hours as well. But the higher time frames, weekly and daily, is still pretty much bearish. And we still do have this bearish trend line intact as well. And if I draw that in now, connecting these lower highs there, I think for us to see more upside for pound JPY and turn bullish again overall, I do want to see a break of that trend line there in the market. So if I go in the 4H, probably allow you guys to see a little bit clearer. So as you can see, connecting these lower highs there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and as you can see, we're almost at that trend line there as well. So from this area, I am expecting more downside for pound JPY to start the week off. Again, it was quite an aggressive push to the upside, so I'm not expecting to see the market back down to create new lows around the 149 area, but I do think we probably can see some downside to start the week off. Nice area here as well of resistance and support. So you can see support, resistance, really nice move to the downside. So I think generally from this area here, there could be some nice shorts to start the week off, Monday, Tuesday, depending how price action forms to the downside. And then first target would be this area here, which is this support here. Really nice move to the upside around the 151 area. So if you can see a nice rejection from there, targets will be that area there. And if you do see a break of that, then we'll probably look at this area here as well, which is where we did see that that momentum really come into the upside from around the 500 area. So two targets there we'll be focusing on for pound JPY for next week. Again, we do need to stay below this resistance here, and we do need to stay below that trend line as well. If you start taking out those two levels there, then we might be trending to the upside and seeing a bit of a bullish run. And if that's the case, we could be looking for a move into this area here, but for now we're currently trading below that, so I'm not really thinking about that move too much unless we do break through that, of course. But for now, bias is to the downside. Again, looking for price to push up a little bit more, test that resistance, test that trend line, and then we can be looking for shorts on the lower time frames and look to target this support here, again 151 area. And if you do get a break of that into 149 500 all the way down there.
And up next, we're going to take a look at gold.
Okay, so now we're going to take a look at gold. So for this pair, I was actually expecting to see a move to the upside, expecting the market to find some support and push on. However, we were falling to the downside, and the market is still giving us some lower lows and lower highs. So I think I probably will change my bias to the downside for gold. It does make sense. I'm seeing a lot of technical aspects meeting up, pointing for gold to move lower. So I can see for next week a move into this level here for gold for next week around the 1782 area, and then potentially even to this support down there around the 1750 area. So more downside for gold. And again, if we take a look at the higher time frames here, move to the weekly time frame and zoom out, you can see if I do draw this trend line here in the market, connecting these two kind of major wicks in the market there. So first, second there, you can see we had a bit of a false break, market drop back underneath. As you can see, we are now retesting that area as well as resistance. So simple break and retest here. If it does hold as resistance, which so far for the past 2 weeks it has been holding as resistance, so I do see a third week giving us another move to the downside. So from a weekly point of view, it's looking like yes, we can be seeing a move to the downside, and daily as well, as we're getting those lower lows and lower highs, and the market's really failing to push on as well. If I go in the 4H, we do have a support, and the market is still failing to break through, which is why we're having a little bit sideways for gold of this price action. So if I do draw that support in, you can see with all those wicks, numerous wicks here, the market is holding this support really well, but it is giving us a potential really nice head and shoulders pattern there in the market. So as you can see, if I just scroll a little bit to the left, you can see this is potentially the left shoulder, potentially the head there, and potentially could be looking for another right shoulder to take us to the downside into those targets I was telling you guys on the daily, and then potentially even lower to the 1750s area. So looking for another push to the upside. Don't really want to be selling into that for gold right now. Really key area of support, and as you can see with all those wicks, definitely not a wise place to be looking for sales for gold. So I want to see gold push up again, make us another lower high or retest that resistance up there, and then give us the dive to the downside. We do have, if I just remove all of that, we do have this resistance here in the market as well, which will be a nice place for gold to come up to, reject and come down again. So as you can see, prior resistance there, if we take that across, will now be acting as resistance there as well. And we also do have this trend line as well, connecting those wicks there. So first, second test there. So generally we will be looking for gold to come into this area around the 1815 area. As long as we can stay below this, I think sales will be looking really good. If we do break through this, give us some higher highs, now probably will flip my bias again back to bullish and look for a push into the 1860 area. But as of right now, we're looking bearish, looking for one more drive to the upside, give us that third lower high. So first, second, third lower high, retest that resistance, retest that trend line, and we'll be looking for selling opportunities back into this support here. It's got to be that support first, because the market is respecting that. We could just range again, so it's got to be to that 1790 area, this support here, a break of that into that 1780 area, and a break of that all the way down to 1750. So shorts for next week for gold, as long as we stay below that 1815 area.
And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin.
And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin. So for this pair, we did see some nice movement to the downside to start the week off, which was expected. I do expect to see that the market come past this wick here. However, as you can see, we didn't quite pass that wick around the 29,000 mark. We didn't quite pass that, formed a higher low there, and now we're pushing into the upside. So Bitcoin might want to see some more upside, but looking at this from a weekly point of view, we are coming into a very key level of weekly support, which will now be turned weekly resistance. So as you can see here, for the past 5-6 weeks, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks there, we were holding this as support, and now we broke past that, and now we'll come back as resistance. So if we can get back above this area, then Bitcoin does look good for buys and more upside back to around the 40,000 mark, so into this level here. So if we can break past this into that level, however, if we don't and we reject that as resistance, it could just be a simple break and retest on the higher time frames on the weekly, and we could actually see Bitcoin fall to the downside again, back into these lows, and probably actually past that wick this time. So look what happens at price action in this area. We're kind of retesting the area right now, so over the next couple of days, depends what price action gives us, where we're seeing another injection of bullish momentum and we've seen price strongly push past, close above that area, then yes, Bitcoin does look good for some nice buys back up to this area, 40,000 mark. But if we don't and we see some nice wicks, price change momentum back to the bears again, then we'll probably look good for some sells back down to the 30,000 mark, which is that support. Then if you do pass that wick, I think we can go into the 28,000 or 27,000. So overall, the market for Bitcoin is still bearish. It is coming into a very strong level, so if it does reject, more sales. However, if it does break through, be flexible enough to change that bias back to the bullish bias, because we could see another big push up to 40,000.
Okay guys, that is the end of the video guys. I hope you all enjoyed that and found that useful. Like always, if you have any questions, agree or disagree with my analysis, drop a comment down below and I'll make sure I'll get back to you guys. But like always, hit the subscribe button, drop a like, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.